Do you think all barking is bad? It's a good question. You know what I mean? Like I would say I consistently talk about on videos and podcasts and stuff like that, like correcting barking, stopping barking, this, that. But do I think all of it is bad? No. I think it's contingent on the owner, right? So basically I said there's 3 different types of barking, right? So you have defensive barking, which would be basically any sort of like territorial barking to make something go away, you know, protecting, stuff like that, right? You have demand barking, which is barking to get a rise out of somebody or something, right? So dog barks at you until you pet them. Dog barks at you until you let them outside. Dog barks at you until you give them a treat, right? And then you have nuisance barking. Nuisance barking, the way I describe it, right? And listen, I'm sure you could poke holes in this, whatever.
Yeah.
Nuisance barking, the way I describe it, is literally just barking to bark, right? I have seen dogs that literally don't want anything that just bark for the sake of barking. You know, like maybe we could argue like they always do want something, which is why they do it, right? But like I genuinely think some dogs just bark just to bark.
Yeah.
Right?
Just to be loud.
So you get into the defensive barking. That I think is inappropriate all the time. I don't see any reason why a dog ever needs to bark defensively at something to make something go away, right? I think that is always our job. I think it's an unhealthy state of mind for a dog to be in, and it's something I want to discourage all the time.
Yeah.
Demand barking, I think initially can be not good for owners because the dog is essentially giving you commands. If you really look at it, right? It's like me saying, dog, sit. Instead, the dog is saying, hey, you, give me a treat, right?
Yeah.
And the more and more the dog realizes they could dictate and control your behavior, I think early in the training process can be counterintuitive. I think long term, if your dog barks at you to go outside or something like that, it's obviously not the end of the world.
No.
It's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If your dog barks because they want to go for a walk or something like that, if you have good control for your dog, I don't think it's the end of the world. Whatever, you know. So that one, I think initially it's a good idea to kind of nix some of, but long term, I think that one is totally up to you and how much of it you want to tolerate, right? The barking to bark, the nuisance barking, again, that's another one that is 100% dictated on the owner. I've met people that don't care about barking. They're just like, my dog barks a lot. I don't really care. And I've met other people that are just like, my dog needs to literally shut the fuck up because I am going to go absolutely crazy because all they do is bark, right? So that one's totally up to you. So whatever, that's my brief. These are the barking, right? The types of barking that there is, right? So this person asked, how do you stop barking while the dog is walking? And they describe that as nuisance barking. I don't know if I would necessarily classify it as nuisance barking. I would assume that this means the dog is barking on the walk at dogs, right? Which is like a frustrated defensive response typically.
Yeah.
So it's something I would correct for, obviously. How do we stop it? We be in a position to tell the dog not to do it. Really straightforward. We talk about dog reactivity all the time. Dog reactivity, I think, is a little deeper. You want to give the dog something to focus on the walk, right? Typically like a heel position or something like that. You want to have a means of enforcing that heel position, right? From there, obviously, because the reactivity is coming from this frustrated, aroused response of pulling into the leash constantly, we start getting the dog used to walking in that heel position around the trigger and understand that the arousal level still might be kind of high, and that's okay. They're kind of working through some of that stress and realizing I'm not constantly tugging into the leash and the frustration is coming down. You see the arousal come down and stuff like that. From there, any remainder signs of it, you could then correct for. Right.
Yeah.
And use some sort of tool that's going to suppress your dog's arousal a little bit. And then additionally, obviously use some sort of reward when the dog is doing it correct. Keep that attention shifted on you. Good example with that. I have this dog, Bear, that I'm working with right now. He's like a border collie mix of some sort. Crazy high energy dog, man. Right. Bear is super, super reactive. Right. And we started off by just focusing on physical positioning, right? Downstays, heel position, stuff like that. He hit a point where he'll do them perfectly. He holds his downstay perfectly around other dogs. He holds his heel position perfectly around other dogs. And that's reduced the arousal, like let's say like 65%, right? Nice. But he still gets really jacked up when he sees them. He'll hold it literally perfectly and like in a relaxed, like hip swung to the side position, but he's just so aroused. He's like, right? He just started making noise, and he's obnoxious and whatever, right? So we started now incorporating shifting the attention. So we focused on the physical positioning first, right? We got him 65% of the way. Now we're focusing on shifting that attention away from it. We just took a high value reward, right? We were using like blocks of cheese yesterday when we worked him at the park, and we were shifting that attention away from the dog, right? So he would look, he'd get all aroused, he'd check in with me, yes, reward, right? We did that a bunch of times. We got that attention even more shifted us, right? So now he's like 75% of the way, and then our next session, we'll keep working at it and closing the gap and stuff like that. So that's kind of the progression of how I start to do that.